Great Spirit, Halito, Grand Rising, Grand Elevations to all the copper color Aborigines out there. Get ready to start this short presentation. I just wanted to put this video out. I ran and redone a previous video that I put out before. So I just kind of added took a lot away from the first video and just redone it all the way through. As you guys know, I did not have the proper equipment to present a proper video on this topic, so I'm going to do it right now. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Peace, love, and light. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys watch this video. All right, peace.
What if you could upload one mini AI written ebook onto Amazon that could replace your
All right, all praise to the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, the Great Spirit, Halito, Grand Rising, Grand Elevations to all the copper color Aborigines out there. Man, listen, this is a topic that we hear all the time. We get these comments in the comments all the time. I can go show you right now thousands of comments on my YouTube of people constantly coming in the comments trying to tell us that we are self-hating Africans, that we hate our history. Native Americans say it to us, Latinos say it to us, our own people say it to us, and white people say it to us. That's the story that everybody has concocted, and everybody sticks to that same story. Oh, you guys hate you hate that you're Africans, blah, 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 blah. Well, let's see. Let's delve into some scholastic sources. Let's delve into some anthropology, and then we're gonna get some verbal testimony from the mouths of people who we know for a fact can tell us and lead us down the right path. Are the so-called Black Americans in America truly African? Let's find out. All right, let's go right now. We're gonna be reading. I'm not gonna hold you guys either. We're reading right now. This is from the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. Yes, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. This is put together by scholars Merrill Tenney. This was published in 1963. All right, watch this. We're gonna read, and the reason why we need to read this and understand this, because this is the foundation for African nations. So we have to read this in order to understand. All right, this is the definition of ham. Now, if you know anything about ham, ham is Kemet. Okay, ham is Kemet. Kemet and Ham is the same people. All right, that's why I wanted to go to this definition. It says, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He, meaning Kemet or Ham, the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So the definition, the scholars know in the definition, the scholars know that the Negroes, the so-called Black Americans, do not come from Africans. The scholars know that. He said that Ham or Kemet became the progenitor. When you Google the word progenitor, it'll tell you what the word progenitor means. The word progenitor means, let's go get the definition. Progenitor, a person or thing from which a person, animal, or plant is descendant or originates. an ancestor or parent. That's what the word progenitor means. So the word progenitor means the father or creator of these people. So the scholar said that Ham or Kemet is the father or creator of the dark races of the earth. The Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites, but not the Negroes. What are these scholars saying? They are telling you that the Negroes, the Black Americans, are not Africans. That's what they're telling you. That's what they are telling you. We do not descend from African nations. Because in order for you to be an African, you would have to descend from one of these four families: Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, or Canaanites. You have to come from one of those four families in order to be an African. Okay? And they said Negroes do not descend from these Africans. So now let's go show you that Ham and Kemet is the same person. Watch. This is from worldafropedia.com. All right, watch this. It says Kemet. They just spelling it a different way. You're used to seeing it K-E, like up here. You're used to seeing it right here, K-E-M-E-T. That's how you're used to seeing it. But they're saying the same thing. Kemet means burnt or land of black people, being derived from the root word Cam, Kim, Cam, Kim, Cam, Kim, and then what's the last word? Ham. And just in case y'all think I'm just making that up, look, you can see it right here, Ham. So Ham and Kemet is the same people. Kemet is the forefather of the African nation. He's the father of the Egyptian, Ethiopian, Libyan, and Canaanite, but he's not the father of the Negro. The scholars know that. In order for them to put that in this book, in this dictionary, this is a Bible dictionary. In order for them to do that, they would have had to done thorough and extended amounts of research to be able to understand that, okay, these Negroes are not Africans. They don't come from these African nations. And we're gonna find out how this was even found out, even through other anthropologists. We're gonna show you that even they understood that the Negroes in America were not of African descent. So we got Ham and Kemet, they are the same people. Now let's go to this book to even further prove that Africans come from Ham. This book is called The Religious Instruction of the Slaves in the West India Colonies, advocated by Richard Watson. Okay, it says, "For is Africa without her heraldry of science and of fame? The only probable account which can be given of the Negro tribes is that as Africa was peopled through Egypt by three of the descendants of Ham, they are the offspring of Cush and Mizraim and Put." So it says that Africa was peopled through Egypt by three of the descendants of Ham. Who did we find out Ham was? Ham is Kemet. Kemet and Ham is the same people. What did we find out at the beginning? Ham is the forefather of all of the African nations. Okay? Now let's go back to the book. It says that Ham, they are the offspring of Cush, Mizraim, and Put. That is, Cush is who? Ethiopians. What are we reading the first? It says Ham is the progenitor of who? The Ethiopians. Right there. Then in the book, it says of Mizraim. Who is Mizraim? Let's go back to the Bible dictionary. That is Egypt. Mizraim was called Egypt. Egypt used to be called Mizraim before it was called Egypt. Just like Ethiopia used to be called Cush before it was Ethiopia.
You can sell this $5 spatula on Amazon and compete with hundreds of other spatula sellers.
Who is Put? The Libyans. Okay? The Libya used to be called Put before it was called Libya. Okay? You got to remember when the When the Greeks took over Africa and they started conquering Africa, they started putting Greek names on the land. And they called Ethiopia, they called Kush Ethiopia. That's a Greek name. Okay, so when the Greeks took over Africa, start conquering, they start putting Greek names on the land so they can understand each other better when they spoke. And they called Misraim Egypt, which means bondage. And they called Kush Ethiopia. They called Put Libya. Those are all Greek names. And we know Egypt means bondage. Okay? That's what it's referring to.
People here in the Americas try to say that the blacks in America are from the transatlantic slave trade that started in West Africa. Now, whenever I ask many West Africans, they don't know what I'm talking about. Just like I'm asking you, you don't know what I'm talking about. So what I'm trying to get to the root of is, because you're from there, right? You grew up there your whole life, right? Okay, so when you were a child, have you ever heard that term?
No.
You never heard about the transatlantic slave trade, even growing up, never heard about it?
No.
So that lets me know that it is, hey, that's what I wanted to know. That's what I'm trying to get to, because everybody claims that about black Americans, but we know that we are the indigenous people of this continent of America. We are the indigenous people of this continent. And everybody try to say, oh, well, y'all from West Africa, but when you go to West Africa or when you talk to many West Africans, they have never heard about it, just like you just said you never heard about it.
Wash with here in America. So have you ever known about any slave trade? Have you been taught about slave trade?
Slave means like
Like slavery, like slave ships?
right?
No. Like the slave trade. Have you heard about the slave trade? You've never heard of the slave trade in Ethiopia?
No.
So you've never heard about a bunch of Africans that got taken to America? You never. Question that I want to ask you. In Africa, have you ever heard anything about the transatlantic slave trade when you was in Africa? Okay, did you hear about it when you came to America?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you got to America, that's when you heard about it. But before America, you never heard about it. Okay. Now, let's go to this book right here. This is from a scholar named George M. Fredrickson, all right? He's going into a man who is an anthropologist and an expert on empiricism, or the study of human skulls. His name was Dr. Samuel George Morton. This book is called The Black Image in the White Man, The Debate on Afro-American Character, by George M. Fredrickson and Edgar E. Robinson. All right? Watch this. It says, the originator of the new scientific ethnology was Dr. Samuel George Morton of Philadelphia, who published a book in 1839 that promised to bring an end to loose speculation about racial origins and differences by opening an era of hard-headed empiricism. Morton's Crania Americana was the result of years of collecting and examining human skulls. As he gathered and studied the crania of different types of men, Morton became aware of the differences between white, Indian, and Negro skulls, and of the fact that the ancient crania from a given race did not seem to differ from those of their modern descendants. Morton concluded that the races had always had the same physical characteristics and, by implication, the same mental qualities. Watch this. It says in the 1840s, Morton collaborated with George R. Glyden, an Egyptologist, who provided him with mummy heads and information about the racial significance of Egyptian tomb inscriptions. In Crania Aegyptiaca, published in 1844, Morton pointed out that both cranial and archaeological evidence showed that the Egyptians were not Negroes. You see that? Morton said he took these skulls. So what's happening is Dr. Glidon, okay, he provided George Morton because he knew George Morton was an expert on empiricism, okay? He knew George Morton was an expert on empiricism, so he provided Samuel Morton, George Glidon provided Samuel Morton with these skulls, and he let Samuel Morton compare these skulls to Negro slaves in the Americas, because that's what's going on right here. In the 1840s, Dr. Morton wanted to find out the racial identity of the Negro slaves in the Americas, because he did not see anything in those people that resembled Africans. So he wanted to try to find out where these people came from. So Dr. George Glidon provided him with some mummy heads of some ancient Africans, and he started comparing them to the Negro slaves. And he found out that they were not the same people. That's why he said both archaeological evidence showed that the Egyptians were not Negroes. These are not the same people. We just read this exact same thing in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. This is a whole nother scholar right here in the dictionary saying the same thing. He said that the Negroes do not come from any one of these African nations. These are the four families of Africa: Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. The scholars say Negroes are not, they don't come from these people. They say Kemet is the forefather of all these Africans, but he's not the forefather of the Negroes. We are not the same as them. And that's what we try to make people understand when we put these documentaries out and all of that. We're trying to make people, just because we're dark skinned and we got tightly curled hair, that does not make us an African. You guys associate everybody with dark skin and tightly curled hair with Africa. No, we're not Africans. And we keep telling y'all this over and over. We're not Africans. Yes, we know a lot of our people was enslaved. A lot of our people was taken on slave ships. Yes, we understand that. And so when you talk about reparations, yes, I'm for the people that happened to a lot of our people. But a lot of our people were not slaves. A lot of our people were prisoners of war, enslaved in our own home. All right? Because many, when you talk about slavery, many West Africans have never even heard of slavery. You seen the video that I showed you when I was in the Uber. You just watched that video. These people have never even heard of it before.
In this video, I'm going to run you through what goes into an internal and external penetration test and how you can use.
I just want to show y'all this. This is with Dr. Samuel George Morton, just to show y'all, elaborate more on him and what he does. It says Morton had published 2 major works on his skulls. As a matter of fact, let's just go here. It says Morton, hold up. It says Morton had published 2 major works on his skulls. Crania Americana, which appeared in 1839, was a study of the skulls of Native Americans. Crania Aegyptiaca, published 5 years later, analyzed skulls that had been retrieved from ancient Egyptian tombs. Morton's method, like Agassi's, was empirical and comparative. He measured the interior capacity of the skulls, and then he compared the results by race. His conclusion collided in the catalog of the entire collection that was published in 1849 and reprinted many times, ranked the human races, as Morton classified them, by cranial capacity. In descending order of volume, these were Caucasian, Mongolian, Malay, Native American, and Negro. So these are all the different types of skulls that he was comparing and matching together. All right, it says subdivisions within the 5 categories showed that Teutonics, Germans, English people, and Anglo-Americans had the largest cranial capacity among all groups, and that American-born Negroes, Hottentots, and Aboriginal Australians had the smallest. So Samuel George Morton was an expert in empiricism, y'all. Okay, so he understood he knew how to differentiate which race belonged to which race based on their skeletal structure. That's what I'm trying to say. All right.
When I was in Nigeria, I did not know of the African American story until I got to America. And found out.
That's true.
Right? I did not know anything about slavery.
And white people, that's slavery. I ain't even mad at y'all about that. For real. You know what I'm saying? Black people, we be f***ing with y'all about this. Because ain't a brother or sister in this room that has been a slave. We ain't none of us picked no cotton. We wouldn't have known about it if y'all hadn't have made the movie Roots.
Now, let's get this book called The Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. This is by David Eltis, okay? The Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade by David Eltis, okay? Watch what it says. It says both, and I couldn't find this online. I couldn't find it online anywhere, like as far as, well, I could find it online, but I couldn't find it on archives. So I would have had to pay for it in order to read it, and I wasn't gonna pay for it when I actually have the book. So I just took a picture of it and posted it on the screen. It says both buyers, Europeans, and sellers, Africans, saw the people traded into captivity on the African coast as outsiders. You see that? It said they saw the people as outsiders. So this kills the notion that Africans were selling Africans into slavery. That had never happened. Africans never sold Africans. Africans were selling and trading indigenous people of America. That's what they were selling. That's why they saw the people as outsiders. They knew those people were not the same as them. So they had no problem selling these people into slavery. You would be crazy and out of your mind to think that Africans would sell their own people into slavery. That is not what happened. Africans were selling indigenous Americans into slavery. How do we know that? Jack Forbes even knows. Because American Aborigines were being taken, or American Indians, the indigenous people of America, were being taken to West Africa as slaves. They were being taken to Africa as slaves. That is documented. I got records to prove that. The indigenous people of America were taken to West Africa as slaves. They were being taken to Cape Verde. They were being taken to Ghana, Guinea, all of that. Angola, yes, they were. All right, they were being taken there to West Africa as slaves. So that's why they were able to sell and trade those people, because they knew those people were not them. That's why they said the Africans saw these people as outsiders. They knew they was not the same people as them. So they didn't have no problem selling these people as slaves. So that lie that, oh, Africans were selling Africans. No, they wasn't. Africans were selling the indigenous people. That's what they were selling. They were not selling their own people. That's a lie. All right, that is a lie. Watch. Let's get the book let's get the video Jack Forbes, and let Jack Forbes even tell you. And this is a Native American himself. This is a Native American himself telling you that indigenous people was taken to West Africa as slaves.
Give me 30 days and I'll make you go viral on short form. And if we don't get you 1 million views, you don't pay. If you had 100,000...
Well, I think the main point is to fill in a gap that has developed because of the suppression of knowledge of the interaction of black people and the Native American people. In other words, it's to tell the story to the fullest extent possible of the interrelations between these two ethnic groups with both extremely rich heritages of culture and history.
Where were the Native American populations during the time that you studied?
Well, during that time period, I think virtually all areas of the Americas and all of the islands, virtually, including up to Greenland, for the most part, were occupied by different native people. So the entire continent and virtually all of the islands were occupied. The Spanish writer Bartolomé de las Casas, who is the principal author of that gives us the information from Columbus's diaries. Columbus chose to finance the conquest of the West Indies by selling Native American slaves, and he characterized it as his granjeria, or granary. In other words, it was the granary that was going to pay for the conquest, that is, Native American bodies. And Columbus himself sent at least 3,000 and possibly as many as 6,000 or more Native American slaves to Europe. This begins as early as 1493. On his return voyage, he takes about 24 Native Americans to Portugal and Spain. In the subsequent voyages, many, many more are sent, men and women. Now, he intends to sell them by the thousands, not only in Spain, but he mentions the Azores, the Canary Islands, the Cape Verde Islands off, the west coast of Africa, as well as in Portugal and Spain and elsewhere. They had several kinds of slaves. They had the normal slave, but they also had people who were called, they were called Indians from the useless islands. They were from islands where there was no gold. And so they had the right to go and remove people from those islands.
Useless islands?
Yeah, Well, Jamaica, for example, would be a useless island because it had no gold. Inutiles, not useful. And they needed labor so badly on Haiti, where the gold was found, Haiti, and Cuba, that they were stealing people constantly and removing them by force from other islands, even after it was no longer technically in the best or possible, legally even, to enslave. They still could remove them as forced free labor, we could call later coolie labor, right? And then they had other categories of unfree Indians as well. But once the population declined on the islands themselves, they began raiding the north coast of Venezuela and Colombia very extensively, also part of Panama. They also came up here and cleaned out the Bahamas completely. All the Lucayo people.
What period are we talking about now?
Well, we're into the 1440s, 1540s, 1560s. Many people from Florida, South Carolina is raided for slaves, and also the west coast of Mexico in the 1530s. Many Mexican Indians are sold as slaves, and it extends on into a much later period of time. But in short, the tremendous numbers of Native Americans were enslaved, and the Spaniards kept looking farther and farther afield for slaves to replenish the labor supply.
You see that? Let's get another book. This book is called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, with complete proof, a shortcut to the world history of the Negro by J.A. Rogers. This was published in 1985. We're on page 9. This is why you think you're African right here. This guy, it says Charles Darwin predicted that the deepest roots of human evolution would be found in Africa. This man right here is the reason that you think you're African. Him, Melville Herskovitz, France Boas, all those people were confederate together to come up with this theory that the blacks in America came from Africa. They didn't have any hard proof. It was a theory, because when those people were traveling the world, they were seeing the indigenous people of Africa, and they were seeing the indigenous people of the Americas. And they like, man, these people look similar. Maybe these people in the Americas came from Africa. That was the whole theory that was concocted, and that theory became a fact to the United States, not a fact to us, because we already know the truth. We know the truth. That's because we're digging. So that became a fact in the Americas. That's not a true fact. That's not a statement. That's not a truth. That's a fact to them, a fact to the United States. That's not a fact to us. But watch this, let's get some more. Let's go to page 30. This is what I wanted to show y'all, because even Africans don't come from Africa. They don't even come from Africa. Watch this. So and this is for all of you Pan-Africans out there. All of you Pan-Africans that run y'all mouth talking about, I'm African. Okay, well, if that's the case, Africans are gonna tell you that they don't even come from there. Watch. I wanna read this up here first, and then we're gonna read down to get the part about the Africans. Okay, watch this. It says, Peter Martyr, the amanuensis of Columbus, tells of Negroes living in Central America before the introduction of slavery, and says these were the first Negroes seen in the Indies. You see that? There were black people in the Americas before Columbus. Okay? That's what they're telling you. There were black people in the Americas before Columbus. It said Lawrence Kingsborough, Antiquities of Mexico, which I haven't. Professor Leo Weiner of Harvard University says the presence of Negroes with their trading masters before Columbus is proved by the representation of Negroes in American sculpture and design, by the occurrence of a black nation at Darien early in the 16th century, but more specifically by Columbus's emphatic reference to Negro traders from Guinea. You see that? Now, they're never going to tell you that Negroes, it was black people here long before Columbus. He adds, hitherto, the ethnologists imagined that Negroes appeared in the New World only during our own epoch when they were imported as slaves. Some statues of the Indian gods in Central America possess typical Negro features. You see that? So that is clear right there. Right there, it is clear that there were black people in the America before slavery. Because you got to think about this. If these Indian statues portray Negro features, that means the people you call Native Americans would have either been the Negroes themselves, or they would have had to encounter these people. Or in order for them to carve these people in sculptures, they would have to know what these people look like. Okay, they have to know what they look like, or they are the people themselves. They carved them after their own likeness, and that's what happened. They were carving themselves. It says, it is indisputable that in very ancient times, the Negro race occupied our territory, Mexico, when the two continents were joined. But watch this. That ain't what watch this. I want to go down here. This is what I want y'all to see. Watch this. It says one of the principal reasons for this theory is, as Delafosse says, now this is referring to the African tribes, okay? They're going to explain where these people come from. It says, Delafosse says, is all the Negro tribes of Africa assert that their first ancestors came from the East. Do you see this? It says, all of the Negro tribes of Africa assert that their ancestors came from the East. That means they did not originate in Africa. Okay? It says there is a translation of this work by F. Fliegelman, Washington, D.C., 1931. This was true even in ancient Egypt. The celebrated Negro queen of Egypt, Hatshepsut, sent an expedition eastwardly to hunt in Arabia, from which land the Egyptians believed their ancestors came. Do you see this? So Africans don't even originate in Africa. They don't even originate there. So if they don't originate there, how can you say you're from Africa when these people don't even originate in Africa? They don't originate there. So if they don't originate there, how can you say you come from Africa? How you gonna say you African and these Africans saying they don't even come from there? And these people right here, they know their history. They know where they come from. They have their history down packed. They know exactly where they come from. Okay? They're not confused at all. They know exactly where they come from. So if they're saying that they don't come from Africa, how are you saying you from Africa? That makes no sense. Now, let's get it from an African's own mouth. Let's get it from their own mouths, and they're gonna tell you that they don't descend from Africa. Watch.
There are people who are rich, and there are people who are righteous. And I was like, there has to be a way to be both.
What made you a person that could write a book called
knowledge he's going to talk about today to share with the world. And this knowledge is came from the Lebu's community. And the Lebus, they have a big culture. And they have a big tradition. And also they have a religion. So it doesn't mean, for example, if you're talking about Lebu, you cannot only start in Senegal, you know, because Lebu doesn't come from Senegal. Because his ancestors, they said Lebu is came from India. Because the Lebu, they used to live in India. And his ancestors, they said the Lebus, they live, they stay in India for 1,000 years.
What I know about Chaminuga, it's a long story of Chaminuga. Chaminuga's body was surviving in Persia. Do you know Persia? That's where most black people came from. Because these southern countries were not living people, they was just forest. The time people began to travel, they came from Persia. They was led by the voice of a bird which was flying. That bird was showing them directions to go and the rules of praying to the other.
Here in Kenya, we are indigenous community because we have been here for a long time. But we came originally from Yemen, then came to Africa. Others crossed the Red Sea and settled in Ethiopia, where many settled, after which we dispersed. Others ended up in Kenya. Presently, Waata are found in the coast region from Tana River, Lamu, even though in relatively few members, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita. That's where they are found. In the northern areas of Marsabit and Isiolo, I also found Waata.
You see that? They told you from their own mouth that they're not Africans. Okay? Now, I want to go show you guys this video because they, a couple of years ago, they was pushing this, you know, all blacks go back to Africa, come home, come home, come home. Well, let's see what come home look like, okay? Because these people knew we were not the same as them.
Up to 5,000 blacks are believed to have moved to Ghana from North America, the Caribbean, Brazil and Europe. For many, it's been a bittersweet homecoming.
Yes, this is home. This is our new home. We've been here approximately 5 weeks now. Of course, we've been in Ghana going on 4 months.
And this is where we plan to have our entertainment room, which is...
Dr. Adwoa Asatiwa left a university professorship to move to Cape Coast with her husband, Kwaku.
We decided to relocate.
As expected, they found they can live in relative luxury on their savings.
So if you're going to retire, this is a better option than going to Florida? Or...
Oh, absolutely. Well, Florida, if you go to Florida, you have to start with $1 million up front. And that's not going to buy you too much in Florida.
But they've had to come to terms with a disturbing discovery. The Africans they see as brothers and sisters see them as strangers.
We wanted to feel like we had come home. However, we later found that we weren't that welcome by the native population. We weren't welcome is because they don't know us, and we don't know them.
It takes just a short visit to the local market to see the gulf of 500 years of separation.
I don't want smoke, I want fresh.
Most locals don't even regard them as fellow blacks.
You have Groova, I want Groova.
They call them a Bruni, meaning whites.
How much you gonna charge me? And don't charge me old Bruni prices. Beanie. If you charge me old Bruni, I don't buy. I like you, so I'm gonna buy. I'll pay 1,000, but I know you overcharge me.
So is she a Bruni? She's a Bruni, is she?
Yeah. So I'm not old Bruni. I'm Bibini. Okay. Okay. Yo, Ashanti. It is not a very pleasing way to be identified. You know, we don't want to be called a Bruni because we certainly weren't treated like a Bruni in the U.S. By any stretch of the imagination. We were treated as African people. So that is a challenge.
She's also found that people have little sympathy for them as descendants of slaves.
They don't know the history. They don't know who we are. They don't know that we are Abebu. They don't know that we are descendants of the Africans that were taken here through enslavement into the various Americas. They don't understand that for the most part. But our task and our challenge is to bring this information back to our brothers and sisters here.
Do you want to know why I'd rather become a remote online closer instead of starting my own business? It's because...
Y'all listen, we gotta wake up. We have to wake up. Listen, let me say this. At the end, when that lady said they don't know the history of slavery. No, it's not that they don't know the history, it's that it's a fake story. That story is only in the Americas. That's why I set this presentation up in this specific order. I did that for a reason. I'm very calculated when I put out a documentary. Okay, I did that for a reason because that's why I showed you the Africans when I was in the Uber with them, talking to him. I'm asking him like, have you ever heard of slavery? No, they have not heard of it. They don't hear about slavery until they get to the Americas. It's an American story. That's what we're trying to make y'all understand. It's an American story. That slavery came on slaves, that's all in America. When you go around the world, now you have Europeans who are going out to colonize these other lands, and they're spreading that story too. So now the Africans that you see now that's coming up, they may have heard about it now because the Europeans are spreading the narrative. But if you get the older Africans, the ones that's like 60 years old, 70 years old, and you go and talk to them and say, have you heard about that when you was a child? Did you hear the story about millions of your relatives being taken? They like, I don't know what you're talking about. They don't know because it's an American story. I don't understand why is this so hard for y'all to believe? Why? Why can't y'all just believe what it really is? The truth is in your face. We are not Africans. Two different scholars said the same thing. George Morton. Samuel George Morton compared the skulls. He said these Negroes ain't African. The Bible scholar said Negroes is not African. You got two different people saying the same thing. Then the lady go to Africa. They said, we don't know nothing about slavery. They telling you in your face. And then I show you the pictures and put them on the screen. You see it. Oh yeah, they black. They got woolly hair, but they not Negroes. They not African. Well, what are they? And then when I put the pictures on the screen, y'all say they not Negroes. And then y'all come in the comments, and when I post a picture of an American Indian and it's black, y'all will say, y'all can't be American Indians because y'all got woolly hair. Okay, well, here go a woolly hair American Indian. Well, he got woolly hair and black, but he's not an African American. Man, which one is it? We don't have no win with y'all people. Y'all gonna keep this going. And to all my copper color Aborigines out there, I want y'all to pay attention to something. These people are still Confederate together. These people are always gonna band together and stick to the story. The Native Americans, the white people, everybody, they're gonna stick together with this story that you are a West African slave. No matter how much evidence they see, they do not care. They're gonna take this to their grave. They don't care how much evidence you have. It's going to the grave with them. Don't you understand that? No matter how much Jesus Christ himself can come down and say, listen, these blacks in America are indigenous. They will argue with God. That's how much these people are gonna take it to their grave. So you gotta understand who you dealing with. These people they don't care how much. Now, to the credit of some Native Americans and some Latinos, those are our family right there. You know, the Native Americans and the Latinos who do see the truth, I look at them as my family, because those are the people that see the truth and say, bro, because I've had plenty of Native Americans that have come to me and was like, bro, you are speaking truth. Native Americans have called me on my phone and we've talked for hours. And they're like, bro, y'all are indigenous, bro. Listen, they come from the reservation and they tell me the stories that they talk about on those reservations. So I know what's going on. We have conversations about the conversations that they're having on a reservation. They know we're indigenous. It's all about money. Y'all think all we want is money. We don't care about your money. We got money. We're not broke. We're not bums. It's not about the money. We want our heritage. It's our heritage. It's what our ancestors fought and died for. That's what I care about. The land. The money, you can keep the money. I can make money. Money's gonna come and go. We can make that. We want our heritage. We don't care about your money. I don't need a check every month. I don't want to be a part of your tribe. I don't have to be. A lot of those tribes is $5 Indians anyway. It's the heritage that we want that was stolen from us unjustly. And the internet was the worst thing that ever happened to y'all, because once the internet came out, it's all over. The internet was the worst thing that could ever happen to America, because once the internet came out and we can research, and we are highly intelligent, so we know how to research, we can read, we can connect the dots, and it's all over. It's all over. Y'all, the gig is up. It's all over. It's all over. And you just need to understand that. So if you think this was something, just wait. I'm telling you, I got something for you. Listen, the next one I put out, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this is undeniable.